my name's David Fulton. I'm with the Extension Unit 13 as an intern with Local Food Small Farm System, and today I'm with Clay Yap of Sola Gratia Farms here in Urbana. You want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Clay?
Sure. I just came on as a farm manager for Sola Gratia back in February. Previous to that, I've been farming up in the Wisconsin area near the Twin Cities. And I've been looking for more of a management position, either renting land for myself or managing for a nonprofit or a government agency or a church like this. So yeah, I feel very lucky to be here. It's been a good season so far.
All right, so Clay, I guess just kind of going off of that, what does agriculture mean to you?
Well, agriculture obviously is growing food. That's, kind of the main definition. But I think it has the potential to be a lot more, and I think there can be a lot more culture in agriculture. I think getting more educational components into agriculture is going to be very important for our culture as a whole and for our global food systems, but also for making local food and small farms sustainable, socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. Education needs to be a huge component of that as well.
And going off of education, Clay, what do you think the importance is to demonstrate to youth in ag education?
Well, what I've seen work, I come from a kind of educational gardening background. Before I got into production agriculture, I was working at a kids gardening program, doing curriculum, running summer camp groups and school groups, facilitating activities. And what I saw was a group of people, young people, who hadn't yet been indoctrinated into the idea that, dirt is gross and, plants come from the grocery store. These kids coming out, the first day maybe they wouldn't want to sit in the grass or wouldn't want to play in the dirt at all, but give them a couple hours and they were totally into it. They were eating carrots right out of the ground and things like that. So what I saw was a group of people who really, it really spoke to them naturally to go out and see where food came from and try new things.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we're here at Sola Gratia, and so Clay, what I want to ask you is, what are some upcoming projects with Sola Gratia?
So right now what we're trying to focus on is getting our production system in place. We're starting more or less from scratch this year. So obviously the first thing is to fulfill our commitments to people and grow the food and distribute the food that we promised people so far this spring. Past being economically sustainable and growing a crop of vegetables and getting that out to the community, Tracy and I are hoping to really start putting the infrastructure in place for a good educational system here. So we have the bee garden as kind of the epicenter of that. We're hoping to expand to doing more of maybe a kids gardening program, like I mentioned. Do a little bit more of kind of a walking area, perennial gardens, where people can come and learn about some of the native perennial plants that are in this area. And just kind of making it more, while still being a production farm, making it a more easily accessible place for families, people in the community, kids, school groups, summer camps, things like that, for folks to come out and see the place and learn a little bit about plants, nature. This is our BCS walking tractor. It's an 853 diesel engine. Gives us the power we need. It's not quite as fast as maybe we'd like, but we'll make it work. This is the subsoiler ripper that I use for primary tillage and for breaking up any new sod and anything like that. It's a very handy tool, very simple but powerful. Does what we need it to do. So some of the things that we've been using that are kind of unexpected tools that we are using is this furrower attachment for the rototiller. We've just modified it a little bit so that we can actually just attach it to the BCS itself without the rototiller. And that has allowed us to cut furrows very deep, as wide as we want with these adjustable wings. And then it's also allowed us to hill on either side. So for instance in the potatoes, this is what we used to hill those potatoes very efficiently. And I'll keep going back through the potatoes with this. And I'm thinking with how practical that's been, how efficient that's been, we're going to be doing a lot more potatoes in the future. These are some earth waste seeders that we got. They're not great seeders, but they're all we could afford this year. What they are very good for is that with a toolbar, simply manufactured toolbar, You can bolt them to whatever spacing you want. So right now they're set up for our 3-row spacing. And then with this toolbar, I've already drilled out holes for our 4-row spacing, our 2-row spacing, and our 1-row spacing. So we can use it to direct seat at those spacings. We can also use it when we're transplanting a bed. We can take this out first and mark out the rows, and from there plant accordingly. And we know that our row spacing is on, so that I know I can get in and cultivate with these other tools. This is, I don't think anyone could really argue with how practical a wheel hoe is. I don't think anyone could really argue with how expensive they are either. What these tool companies have done basically is re-engineer the front fork and wheel of a kid's bike. I was a bike mechanic before I was a farmer, so I'm always looking at how to, make new stuff out of this. So this is the prototype. He ain't pretty, but he gets the job done. His name's Rocket, and again, front wheel and front fork and steer tube from a kid's bike. This is actually part of the rear triangle of the bike, and I was able to reuse the handlebars. Little piece of 1-inch electrical conduit, we were able to extend the steer tube up. And then what you can do is just with a U-bolt, we can bolt on, this is a little furrower that we've made. It's working very, very well. It's good for digging channels, furrows. And then this guy here is the dibbler. He doesn't have a name yet, but I made this out of just an old mountain bike. The nice thing about a 26-inch mountain bike wheel is that the spokes are spaced at a spacing that you can get exactly 12 inches apart. So this wheel with the 2x2s on there these are all at 12-inch spacing. So what we can do is once we get our bed prepped, we get our rows spaced out, we dig a furrow, we can just walk this down the row. We put a couple weights, 10-pound weights on each side, and then we just walk this down the row at a good clip, and it gives us a hole every 12 inches, or with this other wheel, every 18 inches. So with a lot of volunteer work that we get, we can take a crew of volunteers out and just say, go out, put a broccoli plant in every hole. So it makes everything a lot more efficient, a lot more effective. We have a certain number of trays that will fit a certain number of beds only if we use the right spacing. We need to make sure we use the right spacing, and the dibbler really helps with that. So just some simple little experiments that have turned out to work better than we expected. So it's definitely worth a try, and I'm glad they're working out. That's all I got. Four-acre field, almost a perfect rectangle. And so we've split it up with a road going down the middle so that we can take equipment, trucks, things like that down the middle of the field. And then we've split each half into 4 separate blocks. So this 4-acre field is split into 8 half-acre blocks. That makes it easier to get equipment in. It makes it look a little bit nicer. It makes it look like we have something like a plan. And then it also helps me, management-wise, not lose my mind, because I know, oh, that's the tomato block, or that's the peppers and cucumbers block, or whatever. So just trying to compartmentalize everything so we can look at each individual piece of the system and then see how it all fits together. This was kind of a mishmash of a lot of different things. I'm not sure what the manager last year was growing, but we've taken a lot of the debris that was just kind of piled up around here, and we've centralized it. We turned it to get some oxygen in there. We added a little bit more green material, and this was actually up to about here just 3 weeks ago. So the oxygen that we got in there, the green material, and then the heat and moisture that we've gotten, this has already started to break down. So we're trying to get a lot of good fungal communities in here to help build a healthy perennial soil, a little higher acidity, and some better fungal communities for the kinds of grasses and herbs that we're going to end up having in here. And we're hoping this won't be just straight rows. This can be more of a walking path. We can have a lot of mulch going on. Have it look a little more natural, a little more organic. Yeah, that's the idea. But this is something we'll be working on for the next few seasons. We're just trying to put the pieces in place right now. So this is our road going down the middle. You can see the ryegrass is already coming through the wood chips that we put down. But this is the middle of the field. We just had that well drilled last fall. We're still getting it operational. It should be operational by the end of next week. And that's gonna help significantly with saving money on irrigation. We're also gonna be using it for our wash and pack station, which we have the footprint laid out for. And then you can see there's been a cover crop seed. They put down a lot of cover crop seed last fall. pretty much all over the field. So some places where we want it, some places where we don't, but we're making it work. So this is the west half, this is the east half, and this is the A acre. So this block here is WA, this block here is EA, etc., etc. It goes A, B, C, D down the field. So over here, like I said, we're just going to be keeping this mulched and mowed, trying to build good fungal communities, because most of this block is going to turn into where we'll put perennial herbs, grasses, flowers, things like that. These are some onions actually that overwintered last year, which we'll go ahead and use this spring, which is amazing that they overwintered. Of all the winters to overwinter, it's pretty amazing. This block here will be where we'll put all of our melons and winter squash. So this whole thing is just going to be melons and winter squash. These blocks here are going to be peppers, summer squash, cucumbers, eggplant, and over here is going to be corn and beans. So we're going to be growing a few different varieties of sweet corn, a couple varieties of popcorn, and then a few different varieties of bush beans and some pole. The nice thing about splitting it up into blocks like this is it also makes a crop rotation easier, management-wise. We can pretty much get into any part of the field in the spring, more or less, so we don't have to worry too much about having to deviate from the plan. But just being able to say, oh, this block was all one family, this block was all nightshades, then we know that we want to switch it over to maybe a cucurbit or a brassica in the following years. And it also helps us to compartmentalize and figure out where we can afford to put cover crops for a season, how many blocks we can afford to not use for a spring or summer or fall. This is our pride and joy right now. This is our spring brassica block. So this block here is EC. And this is, oh boy, we're gonna call this pushing 5,000 plants right now. So we have just the first, this was kind of an experiment that we did that worked out moderately well. We won't be doing it again, but we put everything that survived that experiment. It's all cabbage and broccoli. We put that in one bed. And this will be some of the first stuff to come out of the field, and we're going to send that straight to the food bank, because those are things that they can use, their customers can use, and they can store as well for a while. So we don't have to worry about sending them stuff that's going to go bad and they have to throw away. We want to give them stuff that they can actually use. And then from here on, we got a few different varieties of broccoli, which is all drinking up that rain we got last night. A few varieties of cauliflower, some Romanesco cauliflower, and then a couple varieties of cabbage. We have a green Savoy cabbage, a red cabbage, and then 2 beds of kohlrabi. And we're experimenting with planting a higher density of cabbage, and then going through and we'll harvest the middle row of cabbage and every other plant when they start to mature and they get kind of a mini head size. We'll harvest to make room for the other heads, which will then let go to full size. Just an experiment, something we're trying out. One of those production practices that not many people are really trying these kinds of things, and we have the opportunity to. So it's a risk, but good payoff if it works. This block has about half this block so far has been direct seeded with spring greens and roots, so radishes, carrots, beets, salad mix, things like that. And this is our tillage system. So we use a BCS walking tractor for all 4 acres. So I've had to figure out a way to get all of the primary and secondary tillage done quickly is the biggest thing, because you can only walk so fast with that thing and you can only do so big of a space. So we have axle extensions for our walking tractor which delineate the sides of the bed. So each one of these plowed up rows is going to be our bed, which will be 30 inches wide, 42 inches on center. So we use a subsoiler ripper as our primary tillage. I do 2 passes with that. That gives us deep aeration, kind of crumbles the subsoil and any hard pan that we have down there without inverting the soil layer or doing too much damage to the biology or the aggregate structure of the soil. And then what I can do, we can walk down here, then what I can do is run over it once with a rototiller, going shallow and slow, and pulverize that top layer of soil. And you can see these are a couple beds that I did. And even with how dry the soil was, we still got a pretty good seed bed, all things considered. But I'm able to just do that with the top couple inches of soil, so I'm not getting down and beating up the soil too deep. I'm just working those top couple inches. So it's a pretty good system all in all. And again, most importantly, I'm able to do, a half an acre in a reasonable amount of time. So this will be where the rest of the spring brassicas go. These were just direct seeded earlier this week. Again, more carrot, the next succession of carrots, beets, salad mix, radishes. This is the onions that came out of the same experiment as the broccoli and cabbage over there. Just a couple beds we got out of it. And we'll harvest these probably as bunching onions. And then the rest of this block, this half of the block up to where it's been tilled up, will be the rest of our onions for the season. This will be our tomato block. So I'm gonna actually come through today and mow down all this rye and vetch with the flail mower and get it tilled under, get it to start decomposing. I'll probably have to till it once or twice more to get it to actually die. And then the end here is where we put our potatoes. We planted about 500 pounds of potatoes this year. We cut them quite small, hoping to get a little bit more so each one of these hills is a row of potatoes. So our rows are about 21 inches on center. Most people say 30, 36, but we're trying at a little higher density, again, because we have the BCS. That's the equipment that we have to work with. And doing a row every 40 inches just did not seem very space efficient. So we had some volunteers come out. We dug furrows with our BCS and a couple hand tools that we built. And we're able to dig some furrows pretty efficiently. Went ahead and filled them in, and then took a furrower attachment that we have for the BCS, and we're able to got a couple pollinator plots on either end of the field. This is some perennial herbs and flowers that and some weeds that went to seed last year. But this helps to attract some of the pollinators, the mason bees and honeybees that we want coming in and helping us get good production, good fruit production.
We're in our greenhouse right now. This is where our seeds start. Actually, some of our seeds started in a germination chamber. We converted our cooler in the storage shed into a germination chamber just because in the cold winter it was easier to keep that space warm for the seeds to be planted and germinated there. Once the seeds were germinated, we brought them in here where then they get plenty of sunshine and space. Here in the greenhouse we already have actually thousands of plants that have moved through here where they started here, were moved out to the cold frame, and now are out in the field. This ends up being a really critical part of the farming operation because it allows us to start our seeds early and get plants strong and viable for then growing out in the field. So we've started in here onions, scallions, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, lots of herbs, lettuces, beets, chard, kale. Now we're on to beans and melons. So really, when we look at our target date of when we want to get things out in the field, we back them up into when do we need them growing in the greenhouse and when do we need to get the seeds planted for proper germination. This ends up being a controlled environment, but it relies heavily upon temperature, light. We have to manage morning, noon, and night. With the temperature it is in here, make sure that there's good airflow. Watering is extremely critical. They're being watered the right amount and the right pattern so you don't have variability in the soil moisture. Too much water can lead to fungal rots and problems with the soil and the plants. Not enough, of course, is not helping them grow. So this ends up being a nice place to work, but it is a lot to make sure that we have everything on point for healthy plants. This gives us our best strong start for what eventually goes out in the field and becomes crops for our CSA members and Eastern. So Sola Gratia Farm was started 3 years ago by St. Matthew's Lutheran Church here in Urbana. Really it's an extension of their stewardship program of wanting to help those in the community who have less. This was really born out of the idea that there are a lot of hungry people in our community that need help, and could we both help them in monetary ways and helping them with food production, and then also transferring in skills. So what ends up happening when you have a farm like this is it allows for us to have a business that grows food that directly benefits those that are hungry. So for example, 10% of everything that's grown on the farm, or at least 10%, is given to the Eastern Illinois Food Bank, and then they distribute it in East Central Illinois to places like the Time Center, Daily Bread Soup Kitchen, some of their mobile food pantry options throughout the summertime. And also we have donations that come through St. Matthew's Church or to the farm directly that then are given to Eastern Illinois Food Bank. We also have a strong volunteer program, so people can come here, volunteer their time, and in exchange get to learn some of the skills that come along with food production, whether it's planting seeds, working in the greenhouse, working in the field, through the educational components, other outreach programs. That allows for us to not just be growing food and producing food for those that need it and are directly benefiting from it, but it also allows for people to learn how to grow their own food. So then it kind of allows for a spreading of all of the knowledge and skills that go into an operation like this. So the rest of the food that's grown on this farm is used to support our CSA program. CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. So basically what that is it's like a subscription service where people sign up for a share or a portion of the bounty from what the farm produces. So in the beginning of the year, in the winter and early spring, we have a drive where we are collecting memberships for people that sign up as shareholders. And when people sign up as a shareholder with Sola Gratia Farm, they're promised 26 weeks, a share of 26 weeks of the bounty of the produce that comes from this farm. So that's vegetables, fruits, herbs, flowers. This year we're growing 50 different kinds of fruits and vegetables, 150 different varieties, and basically allows for them to get, if you sign up for a half share, a half bushel, a full share, a full bushel, and you come as a member each week, pick up your box, and that box is a full variety of everything that's ripe and ready for harvest at this farm. So that's where most of our food goes. Like I said, at least 10% of our produce goes to Eastern Illinois Food Bank. We work directly with the food bank to make sure that we're meeting their needs, so that we're giving them food that their recipients want, like the food that they end up using a lot of and that has a longer shelf life. So we have designed the operations plan on the farm to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the Eastern Illinois Food Bank recipients, but also have the bounty that our shareholders want, with everything that comes with spring, summer, and fall farming. We also we'll have a farm stand here on site at Sola Gratia Farm, so those folks in the neighborhood can come and buy smaller portions of food if they aren't shareholders. And we'll also be at the farmers market on Saturdays in downtown Urbana. So another important partner for Sola Gratia Farm is the Common Ground Food Co-op. So that's a food cooperative that operates by cooperative principles within Urbana, serves the community well in providing local, fresh, nutritious, organic, naturally raised food, and food that is really coming direct from the producer to the consumer through the co-op. So we will have some of our produce there, fruits, vegetables, flowers, some herbs, and that allows again for our food to become available to a wider part of the community, and it also helps us partner with what we think is a really important food provider in Champaign-Urbana. I mean, the co-op really has educational programs. They have food priced appropriately for those staple products that people need, grains, fruits, vegetables, dairy, and really are doing a great job of making sure that people learn about healthy food, have access to healthy food, and really making sure that everybody in that food chain is treated with respect and in a fair and equitable way. So one thing we're really excited about this year is that Sola Gratia Farm is going to be one of 3 farms that's going to be hosting a day of a beginning farmers camp. The Champaign County Farm Bureau and the Champaign Park District are partnering to put on a week-long 3-day camp for kids, and I believe the ages are 6 to 11, for kids that are interested in getting a look at what farming in Illinois is like. There'll be a day of traditional row crop agriculture, there'll be a day of livestock production, and then there'll be a day of fruit and vegetable, local fruit and vegetable growing. So Sola Gratia Farm was asked to be that local fruit and vegetable operation, and we're pleased to be a part of it. We'll be working with the kids probably in 4 different modules, one on beekeeping and pollination, one on seed starting, one in the actual field work and harvesting, washing, packing, getting ready for our members, getting ready for market, getting ready for sales at the co-op. And then the 4th piece will be in food preparation, trying to get the kids interested in growing their own food, and then what it, the joys of why you're doing it in the first place, which is eating, fresh, locally grown, natural produce. So we're really excited. That's an important part of this farm, is for not only growing the food, but helping make sure that other people are learning about it, are able to do it themselves, are getting excited about what, how great our soil is here, how great our weather is here, and the opportunity that we have to, right here at home, grow our own bountiful, healthy food. So we're really excited that we were asked to be part of that program, and look forward to camp this summer with the kids.
Thanks for coming out.
The kids are playing the fish are by